Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. The gospel music world is filled with sadness. A beloved voice and spirit, Mama Mosie Burks, has passed away at the age of 92. She was the heart and soul of the Mississippi Mass Choir, and her death has left a hole in the lives of so many people who loved her music, her energy, and her unshakable faith. What happened during her final days touched everyone close to her, and the tribute at her funeral was so powerful that even the strongest singers in the gospel community couldn't hold back their emotions. Her final farewell wasn't like anything anyone had seen before. In the world of gospel music, some voices stay with us forever, and Mosie Burks was one of those voices. Her singing didn't just sound good, it moved people, lifted their spirits, and made them believe in something greater. Her voice brought comfort to people during hard times and gave joy to those celebrating life. She didn't just sing songs about God, she lived her faith in every word she spoke and every note she sang. At 92 years old, her passing was not just the end of a life, but the beginning of a legacy that will live on for generations. Mosie Burks was more than a gospel singer. She was a symbol of strength, hope, and unwavering faith. Her life journey, from humble beginnings to international recognition, shows how one person's voice can inspire millions. Born in 1931 in Mississippi, she grew up in a large family with deep roots in the Black church. It was in that church where she found her voice, not just as a singer, but as a spiritual leader. People would gather just to hear her sing. Her voice had a special kind of power that made people cry, shout with joy, or fall to their knees in prayer. From the very beginning, it was clear her singing was more than just music. It was a gift from God. Long before she became known around the world, she was already famous in her community. She sang in church every Sunday, leading hymns that brought everyone closer to God. Even during difficult times like poverty, pain, and the struggle for civil rights, she kept singing. Her voice became a source of hope and healing. It didn't matter if you were black or white, rich or poor, when she sang, everyone listened. And everyone felt something deep in their soul. The world really began to know her in the late 1980s when the Mississippi Mass Choir was created by Frank Williams. Mosie became one of the most powerful and unforgettable voices in the choir. Her performances were filled with energy, passion, and deep conviction. Songs like When I Rose This Morning and God's Been Good to Me became anthems that lifted people from their struggles and reminded them of God's love. She didn't just sing the lyrics, she felt every word and made sure the audience felt it too. Even as she got older, Mama Mosie never slowed down. She kept traveling, performing, and ministering through her music. Whether she was in a church, a theater, or an outdoor event, her smile lit up the room, and her voice never lost its power. She always wore her beautiful church hats and carried herself with grace. Fame was never her goal. She sang for God, not for attention. And that's why people loved her so much. She was real, humble, and filled with love. But eventually, age caught up with her body, even if her spirit stayed strong. In the last few years of her life, she started to deal with health issues that come with getting older. She had pain in her joints, she got tired more easily, and she started saying no to long trips. But she never let those things take away her joy or her faith. She didn't complain. She kept singing, even if it was just from her front porch or a chair in her living room. Neighbors and visitors would come by just to hear her sing a little. One person who visited her said that even when she couldn't walk far, she'd sit down, lift her hand, close her eyes, and start singing. It felt like heaven opened up in that moment. Even in her weakness, she was giving strength to others. People close to her say that during those final months, she started talking about getting ready. She wanted to make sure her life was in order, both spiritually and practically. She didn't fear death. She welcomed it, because she believed it meant going home to God, the one she had sung about her whole life. Her family, friends, and church community were often by her side. There weren't any dramatic announcements, no hospital photos on social media, no big crowds around her bed. Just quiet, peaceful moments filled with love, prayer, and music. One especially touching moment happened just weeks before she passed. Members of the Mississippi Mass Choir came to visit her at home. She asked them to sing near the cross. As they began to sing, her eyes filled with tears, and she softly joined in, her voice faint but full of emotion. When the song ended, she whispered, "That's how I want to go out, with a song in my soul." It was a message from her heart. She knew the time had come. When she finally passed away, it was peaceful. She was surrounded by love, covered in prayer, and comforted by the faith that had guided her entire life. She didn't need headlines or attention. Her exit from this world was just as humble and beautiful as the way she lived. A few days later, the Mississippi Mass Choir released an official statement, saying, "With heavy hearts, we announce the transition of our beloved Mosie Burks, our mother, our sister in Christ, and the heartbeat of our ministry. She fought a good fight. She kept the faith. And now, she has earned her crown." The news spread quickly. All across the gospel community, people were heartbroken. Tributes began pouring in from gospel legends like Shirley Caesar, Kirk Franklin, Donnie McClellan, and Yolanda Adams. Many of them had grown up listening to her, singing with her, or being inspired by her ministry. Fans shared old videos, stories, and photos. Churches held special services in her memory. But the most emotional moment was still to come, her funeral. When the day of her funeral arrived, it became clear that this wasn't going to be an ordinary goodbye. People traveled from across the country to be there. Some had never even met her, but they felt connected to her through her music. Jackson, Mississippi, her hometown, had never seen anything like it. The service was held at New Hope Baptist Church, a large church known for big church gatherings. But on this day, it felt like the holiest place on earth. Hours before the service started, the church was already packed. Hundreds of people stood outside, waiting with fans in their hands, wiping tears from their eyes, and holding photos of the woman who had changed their lives. Inside the church, her casket was white and gold, surrounded by beautiful flowers, white lilies, roses, and magnolias. Her favorite church hat sat nearby, a simple but powerful reminder of the woman she was. Then, the music began. The Mississippi Mass Choir stood up in their flowing robes. They were crying, but they were ready to honor her the way she would have wanted, with song. There were no instruments, just their voices. They started singing "When I Rose This Morning," and the moment their voices filled the room, something incredible happened. People stood up. They lifted their hands. Some shouted praise. Others cried so hard they couldn't stand. The atmosphere changed. It wasn't just a funeral anymore, it became a powerful spiritual experience. Some choir members broke down during the song. Others sang louder, pouring all their love into the performance. It felt like Mama Mosie was right there, singing with them. One person said it best, "It felt like heaven cracked open just a little." The spirit in that room was so thick and real, you could feel it in your bones. Many well-known gospel singers came to speak. Shirley Caesar gave a powerful eulogy, saying that Mosie was a frontline soldier who never gave up. Pastor Marvin Sapp shared a message that brought many to tears. He said, "Mama Mosie didn't just sing gospel. She was gospel." Every person who spoke or sang that day honored her with deep love and respect. They didn't just say goodbye, they celebrated her life in the most beautiful way possible. As the service continued, more songs were sung, more prayers were said, and more memories were shared. One touching moment came when children from her home church stood up and sang one of her favorite hymns. Their voices were small but sweet, and many people in the audience cried softly as they watched the next generation carry her legacy forward. Her life had touched not just adults but young people too. She had inspired them with her love for God and her love for music. After the funeral, the celebration didn't stop. People gathered outside, hugging, singing, and telling stories about Mama Mosie. They laughed, cried, and reminded each other how blessed they were to have known her, even if only through her music. Her burial was private, attended only by close family and friends. But the impact of that day was felt far beyond that church. Radio stations played her songs non-stop for days. Church choirs across the country sang her music during Sunday services. Online, fans shared memories and videos of her singing, keeping her spirit alive. Mama Mosie Burks may have left this world, but her voice and her legacy are still here. Every time someone sings one of her songs, every time a choir lifts their voices in praise, every time a young girl puts on a church hat and stands before a microphone with confidence and faith, Mama Mosie lives on. Her story teaches us that true greatness doesn't come from fame or fortune. It comes from serving others, from staying faithful, and from using your gifts to bring light into the world. She didn't chase the spotlight. She just shined wherever she went. She didn't sing to be famous. She sang to give hope, to heal hearts, and to praise God. And for that, she will never be forgotten. Mama Mosie Burks's life was a song filled with joy, sorrow, strength, and praise. And now that song continues in the voices of those she touched. Though her voice has gone silent here on earth, it's surely singing louder than ever in heaven. Rest in peace, Mama Mosie. Your voice will echo forever. Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it felt like scripture wrapped in song. It had the power to move your heart, stir your spirit, and make your eyes well up with tears. That's how deeply Mosie Burks touched people with every word she sang. But at her funeral, there was a moment that went beyond music. A video played on a big screen, showing some of her most powerful performances, her interviews, and moments captured behind the scenes. You could see her dancing joyfully, testifying with all her heart, laughing with that unmistakable twinkle in her eye, and hugging fans like family. As her voice filled the room one last time, everyone sat silently, listening and remembering. Then suddenly, the quiet turned into tears. People began to sob softly, others cried openly. Some clapped along to the music, as if she were still standing on stage. It wasn't just grief, it was gratitude. As the service came to an end, something beautiful and completely unexpected happened. The choir turned to the crowd and invited everyone in the room to stand up and sing together. They chose Mosie's favorite hymn, I'll Fly Away. Instantly, the church transformed. It was no longer a funeral, it became a joyful celebration, a homegoing unlike anything most people had ever seen. Every voice in the room rose together. Some sang loudly, some softly, but all sang with heart. People swayed with the rhythm, some raised their hands, others clapped. A few even danced in the aisles. It was not a moment of sadness anymore, it became something holy. The final note of the hymn rang out, and as the choir's voices faded, the entire crowd jumped to their feet in a standing ovation. But it wasn't for a show. It was for a life that had been so full of meaning, a life that gave everything to God, to people, and to the gospel. Outside the church, a beautiful white horse-drawn carriage waited patiently. It would carry Mosie's casket to her final resting place. The streets were full of people, standing shoulder to shoulder. Some were singing softly. Others just stood still, holding candles with quiet tears running down their cheeks. That moment wasn't just about religion or fame or music. It was something bigger. It was about a woman whose life had brought people together, people from every walk of life. But here's the truth, the funeral was powerful, but it's the legacy that Mosie left behind that truly matters. Her story didn't end the day she died. In many ways, it had just begun a new chapter. Though her voice is now silent, the impact she made continues to shake the gospel world even today. Her loss isn't just a personal one for her friends and family. It's a loss for generations. Because Mosie Burks didn't just sing gospel music, she led people to God through it. She didn't just perform songs, she helped souls find peace, joy, and healing. To really understand her impact, you can't just look at the stage where she sang. Yes, she was the powerful lead singer for the Mississippi Mass Choir, a group that rose to national fame and became a cultural force. But Mosie was more than a voice in the choir. She was a bridge. She stood between the old church traditions and the new praise movements, and somehow, she made them feel like one. She honored the hymns that our grandparents sang, yet she welcomed the freshness of today's gospel, and she connected them so beautifully that you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Her renditions of songs like I'm Not Tired Yet, When I Rose This Morning, and Your Grace and Mercy didn't just entertain people, they transformed them. Many pastors and worship leaders have said that the moment Mosie began singing, people would rush to the altar. Some say they saw people weep, kneel, and even shout before a sermon was even preached. One church leader said, when Mama Mosie sang, it didn't matter if you were young or old, Baptist or Pentecostal, rich or poor, God used her to speak directly to your heart. Her style wasn't just about technique or showmanship. It was about honesty, emotion, and connection. She didn't rehearse feelings. Everything that came from her mouth came straight from her soul. That's why her voice reached far beyond church walls. People in hospital rooms, prison cells, and living rooms all across the world felt her songs as if she were sitting right next to them. That's the kind of power she had, not because of fame, but because she sang with true purpose. But her legacy goes deeper than music. It's spiritual. It's cultural. It's about community and generations to come. Spiritually, Mosie's life wasn't about being in the spotlight. It was about prayer, humility, and service. She was the kind of person who prayed before singing, prayed after singing, and then prayed for the people she sang to. Behind the scenes, she mentored younger choir members, comforted people going through struggles, and offered love and wisdom without ever expecting anything in return. Whether she was on stage in front of thousands or quietly sitting with someone in pain, her ministry never stopped. Culturally, her journey as a Black woman from Mississippi who rose to global recognition is its own powerful story. She carried the deep, rich traditions of Southern gospel, the foot-stomping, hand-clapping, heart-crying music that was born during slavery and carried through generations. And she brought it to the world with grace and dignity. She didn't change herself to fit the spotlight. She brought the spotlight to the soul of her music. In her community, Mosie was known not just as a gospel legend, but as a neighbor, a mother figure, and a trusted mentor. She stayed grounded. Fame never made her proud or distant. In Jackson, Mississippi, and beyond, she was active in revivals, volunteered at churches, and supported causes close to her heart. People knew her voice, but they also knew her heart. She didn't need fancy stages or expensive shows. All she needed was a microphone and a willing heart. And then there's her generational impact. Younger gospel singers today often name her as one of their biggest inspirations. Singers like Tamala Mann, LaRandria Johnson, and Jonathan McReynolds have all talked about how gospel pioneers like Mama Mosie showed them the way. Her ability to balance spiritual power with musical excellence has become a guide for the next generation of worship leaders who want to be real and impactful. Even now, after her passing, a whole new wave of love and respect is rising. Her music is suddenly everywhere again. Her songs are charting, people are streaming her albums like never before, and churches are playing her old performances during services. Gospel radio stations are celebrating her legacy with special programming. Social media is full of tributes. Her name is being spoken in circles that never even knew her before. Tribute concerts are being planned. Special features are airing on gospel networks. But perhaps the most touching thing is this: people aren't just hearing her music, they're feeling it again. They're using it to cry, to pray, to worship, to heal. And that's how her gift continues to live on. You see, Mosie never wanted applause. She didn't sing for fame or fortune. She sang because she wanted people to feel closer to God. Every note was a prayer. Every performance was an offering. And now, her offering continues through every single person she touched, whether they met her or not. But there was one final moment that revealed just how deep her soul was. Weeks before her death, despite her declining health and rare appearances, Mosie stood up in her church one Sunday and gave a message that would become her final farewell. It wasn't planned. It wasn't a big announcement. It was simple and sacred. That morning in her home church in Jackson, during the testimony part of the service, she rose from her seat slowly. The room went silent. With a cane in one hand and a folded handkerchief in the other, she made her way to the pulpit. She walked with small steps, but her presence filled the whole space. Everyone was already emotional from the worship, but when she reached the microphone, a holy stillness came over the room. Then she spoke. "If the Lord calls me home tomorrow, I want you all to know I'm ready. I've sang my last song, fought my last storm, and I still got my praise. Don't cry too long. Just keep singing. That's how you'll keep me alive." And just like that, the church couldn't hold back. People stood, tears pouring down their faces. Some shouted in praise, others hugged each other and cried. It wasn't just a goodbye, it felt like she was passing the torch. It felt like a blessing, a final lesson, a message from heaven. She ended by softly singing one verse of the hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." Her voice was gentle, trembling, but full of strength. "When peace like a river attendeth my way, That note is now burned into the memory of every single person who was there. Some recorded the moment on their phones, not realizing they were capturing the final public words of a gospel legend. That clip has since gone viral. It's been shared on Facebook groups, YouTube, Instagram pages, and church websites all over the South and beyond. Every time someone watches it, the tears start again. New people are discovering her voice. Older fans are finding healing in her words. Her final message isn't just a goodbye, it's a call to action. In the days following her death, pastors everywhere shared that quote from their pulpits: "Don't cry too long. Just keep singing." That one sentence has become a rallying cry. Choirs are dedicating songs in her honor. Church mothers are repeating it in prayer meetings. Social media is flooded with the hashtags #KeepSingingMama and #MosieForever. Gospel communities are taking her message seriously, vowing to protect and carry forward her sound, her spirit, and her story. Some radio stations even aired her final message uncut, letting her voice play just as it was that morning. Then, they followed it up with an entire set of her most beloved songs. It wasn't just entertainment, it was worship. It was therapy. It was love. Her voice continues to bring peace, even after death. One fan wrote online, "I lost my mother this year. I thought I couldn't go on. But when I heard Mama Mosie say, 'Don't cry too long. Just keep singing,' something inside me began to heal. I realized that praise is power, even in the middle of pain." Another person said, "I didn't even know who she was until she passed, but now I can't stop listening. It's like her voice is pulling me out of the dark." That's the power of Mosie Burks. Her voice wasn't just made for records or churches, it was made to reach the soul. Her final words weren't for history books or documentaries. They were meant for healing. And now, they're doing more than she ever could have imagined. As we reflect on her life, one truth stands above all the rest. Even though Mama Mosie is no longer here in the flesh, her spirit, her love, and her message are alive and strong. Her voice still sings, even in silence. Her legacy is eternal. And every time someone sings a gospel song with joy, with tears, with faith, she is right there with them, whispering from the heavens, "Keep singing."